Okay, so what else might be a good default? If we look at the first style we created, we can go down this list and see if there's anything that we think might be common to all typographical elements. So what about font size? Well, already we have a lot of different font sizes, and very few of them have a common font size, so it doesn't seem like this would be a good candidate. Font weight. At this point, every typographical element that we're using uses this font weight 100, so this seems like a good candidate. I'm going to cut this property, and I'll paste it in our body tag, and then let's do a search for any place where this is used. Scroll down, and we'll remove these. Okay, we'll save this. Let's check it out in the browser again. So it seems like we're losing the font weight, at least on our heading here, and as we scroll down, we'll see the font weight getting lost on all of the other headings as well. If we inspect this element, we can get a bit of an insight into what's going on. So here in the styles section, something we haven't talked about yet is that this shows us the order in which styles are being applied and which styles are being overridden. Element.style is what's inside of the style tag in the element, and so it appears at the top because it's going to win out over everything else. The next up is icon box title, the class selector, and so all of our settings here will win over anything else. If we scroll down, we have H3, which says the user agent style sheet, which is the style sheet that our browser uses by default. This cross through here means that this is being overridden, so the font size is being overridden. But if we look down here at the bottom, we have a font weight of bold, and we can tell it's applying because it doesn't have the strike through. If we scroll down a little bit more, it says inherited from body, and you can see the two properties we've set on body, font family and font weight. So it looks like the browser is setting some styles that are more specific than the body, and therefore they win. So what are our options here? The first is to use a universal selector, which looks like an asterisk, and it just says apply this style to every element on the page. If we jump back to the editor, we can give this a shot by replacing our body selector with the universal selector. If we save this and we go back to the browser and refresh, you'll see that the font weight is being applied. Now, there are some problems in using the universal selector. The biggest is that it's very hard to know the implications of what you're doing. By using the asterisk, you're affecting every element on the page and every element you will ever add to the page. So it's kind of hard to anticipate every effect that it could have. The chances of making too broad of a generalization in the universal selector and then having to override it later are pretty high. Remember, one of our goals is to not override our own styles. This allows us to have more sustainable code, and it makes it easier to read. And one of the major ways that we've managed to avoid overriding our own styles is by being more specific with our selectors. The universal selector is the antithesis of specific. And while there are some front-end developers that advocate using it for a very specific purpose, that is a CSS reset, which we'll talk about later. In general, it's going to be better to be more specific about your selectors so you don't end up writing a lot of rules that override that universal rule. Another problem, though it's a small one, is one of performance. When the browser has to apply styles to every element on a page, that's very inefficient, at least in terms of CSS. Now keep in mind that even if we're very careful with our CSS and we use the most performant selectors, that we're not going to reduce the amount of time that it takes the browser to process the page by an awful lot. Some researchers have shown that it's maybe a difference of 50 milliseconds, but it's still something we can keep in mind, especially since mobile browsing is becoming so much more popular and there's a lot less computing power in phones than there is in desktop computers.